I believe this may be from the Infinite game. Okay. It mentioned company executives who talk about pay for performance. So saying you get paid based on how you perform. But is my shirt inside out? But they'll like get destroy the company, and then when they have to leave, they get millions of dollars in severance. And when I say destroy the company, it's not all of them, but like when they get kicked out because maybe they were squeezed out, maybe there was something, maybe the company was doing poorly and they needed a scapegoat. They get rid of these company executives, and they walk away with millions of dollars in severance, which is the opposite of being paid for performance. If it was paid for performance, they would have owed the company money at this point, in severance. Sick man only wants health, and a healthy man never wants the world. When you are sick, you want nothing but health, but when you are healthy, you never appreciate that you are not sick. You think, oh, I would be happy if only I was healthy. All I want is to be healthy. But then if you were healthy again, you don't go, oh yeah, all of my desires are satisfied. You never think that. And maybe you should go and wonder if some of the things you desire now are like that for you too. And the thing, so there's two sides of this coin. One side is, does this mean you should not want those things? Well, not necessarily, because if you're sick, it doesn't make sense for you not to want to be healthy. You are always on a treadmill to look for that next thing. It's so it's I guess it's like the hierarchy of needs. Is like once the most immediate thing is satisfied, your next most immediate thing becomes your new most important thing. So that's why rich people who say money can't buy happiness, they got their money and now they're working on their next most important thing, which I suppose is fulfillment and happiness. But saying so, like, the saying for money can't buy happiness is the same as saying being healthy isn't everything there is to achieve, to get in life. But if you're running around healthy, you're not going to be walking around in the hospital telling people that health isn't the most important, isn't doesn't give you everything in life. Now, are you like? Does that mean they no longer want to be healthy? It makes no sense. Okay, so next is permission to versus intend to. So it was the captain who took over a ship. He was a very competent captain, and the ship was failing or something. I can't remember exactly how it works. He didn't understand the controls. He tried to give commands. He wanted to be like the most competent captain. He wanted to turn things around, and so he tried giving commands. And then the crew was like, followed his commands. And then at some point he gave a command, do this, perform this task. And then they were like, yes. And then he went, and he realized they couldn't do it because that's not how the controls work. You can't, it's like saying, like, change the gear to drive, or whatever, like in a car. And then you go in and you go, oh, but this is not a manual drive. Like the car you have, or something. It's basically something. He gave a command that wasn't possible with the controls of the ship. And then he asked, did you know that the command I gave was impossible, or this piece of equipment wasn't on the ship, or that doesn't work this way? And they said, yes, sir. And he said, so why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you let me know it wasn't there, or the ship doesn't have that? And they said, because we have to follow orders or something. And he realized that he could not run the ship using his knowledge. He needed to use the crewmates' knowledge of how the ship works. So he changed the system where now the crewmates have the responsibility to decide or what they believe is the best course of action, and they will come to him, and instead of asking him for permission to do something, they tell him, I intend to do this. And then he will, unless something happens, he won't, if he has a reason to reject it, he'll veto it and tell them no, or maybe make an adjustment and tell them to and tell them to proceed. And the transition, it goes from him giving commands to the crew deciding what they want, and he just at most vetoes it. And this moves responsibility from him to make decisions to the crew to make decisions for themselves, to find what they think is best. So he changed requesting permission to intend to do it. So instead of do I have permission to do this, it's do I intend to do this, and then he either goes proceed or, most of the time he'll say proceed. And the ship operated smoothly after that. Everything worked fine because the crew knows the ship, and he just trusted that their knowledge of the ship more. So they were given essentially tasks, not really. They were given responsibilities, and they just have to figure out for themselves the best way to fulfill those responsibilities. Next, taking responsibility happens at the time of performing an action and not when you get caught. And so in this case, Simon was talking to someone in the army, and he was saying, who makes it? Or like, have you ever let people go? And the army sergeant or whatever it was replied, yeah, we had to let someone go. And Simon was like, really? Well, with how close you guys are, he must have really messed up. What did he do for you guys to have to kick him out? And they said he fell asleep on night watch. And Simon said, that's it? That doesn't sound that bad. And they replied, you don't understand. The problem is not that he fell asleep on night watch. The problem is that when we confronted him about him falling asleep on night watch, he denied it. And when we asked him if he was sure, he denied it again. And only when we presented him with irrefutable evidence did he then admit to it and say, I want to take responsibility for my actions. And that was when they had to let him go, because if someone is not willing to take responsibility for their actions until they get caught, then you can't trust them to have your back. That's the story. I'm not sitting here to preach. It makes sense. That's the story. I mean, it's difficult. I'm not that responsible of a person. It's important for me to become more responsible, of course. But yeah, so responsibility is to acknowledge and admit that you have responsibility happens at the time of the decision and not only when you get caught. Next. Lingering effects are a better judge of a leader than the effects when they were in office. So if a company does well while a leader is in office, but then they leave and the company collapses and can't function, then the leader wasn't that great. Because, yeah, you could say it means that he held everything together like glue, but also he didn't prepare for the future. Because he didn't create an environment where the people are capable of functioning without him. Because the leader should be able to create something that is... Actually, I don't want to say that's not right. A leader's job... A mark of a great leader is someone who creates something that is self-sufficient, basically. For example, if you were to be a parent, your primary long-term goal is not the survival of your child. It is for your child to grow into an adult that can survive on his own. And so, and leadership is the same as parenting. Now, does that mean you want to build a company that will throw you away? Hopefully not. Hopefully they will be happy to have you around, even when they can function without you. Next, all decisions are emotional. Acknowledge that emotions convince you to make mistakes, especially when you're focused on just the positive or negative outcome that you want, or the positive outcome you want or the negative outcome you want to avoid. More emotion means you should slow down more. So we like to convince ourselves that we are rational. We like to believe in rationality. We like to believe that our decisions, our actions are because they are logical, objective, and represent reason. Now, should we strive to be purely rational? Well, there is an idea there that makes that seem very nice. Think like turn us into AI, turn us into these machines that take perfect care of our health, is perfectly productive, has perfect communication skills and so on. But we also must understand that we are purely emotional beings. That is to say, all of our decisions are completely related to our emotions. That doesn't mean that they're all irrational. But we have to acknowledge that emotions, feelings, and I don't mean love or hate, but I mean basically like neuro impulses that drive us to perform certain behavior that is subconscious, outside of your rational brain, not from your prefrontal cortex. So you have to accept that. And the benefit of accepting that is that you can realize, or it can assist you in realizing, okay, my emotions are kicking in and they're going to cause me to make mistakes. And sometimes if I'm only focused on this thing, this maybe catastrophizing, you can go, okay, that's my emotions speaking. I need to be able to look at the whole picture. Or if you're going, I should do this, and then maybe you need to go, okay, that's my emotion speaking. I probably shouldn't drink 20 liters of alcohol. I mean, obviously that's an extreme example, but the point is, just sometimes if your emotions are high, you may want to slow down a bit before diving into something. Do you want coffee or tea versus do you want a drink? So yeah, if you say, would you like to buy a drink from me? Or if I say, would you like coffee or tea? The second one is much more likely for people to choose to buy a drink from me, because the question presumes that they're already ready to buy. Now, that doesn't mean they'll all buy, but it greatly increases the chance of them buying something. Okay. Economics of trust. Trust is what makes the world go around. And the reason is because there are trust. Everything has a economics of trust, right? So for example, let's say you have a subordinate. You trust him with a task. You come back and then he doesn't perform the task maybe perhaps not to your satisfaction. Then in the future, the detriment is that now, well, you may not be able to trust him with the task, or maybe you are concerned that the task won't get done in time, so you have to waste time monitoring whether or not the task gets done. Economics of trust. Or let's think about this in a broad scale. Now, obviously, this is that doesn't mean that you should just unconditionally give out trust, but just hypothetically speaking, the necessity of law and the amount of resources in armed forces, in lawsuits, in investigations, is because we need to defend ourselves in the case that someone, some force, some organization, some country isn't trustworthy. In a world where all humans are completely trustworthy, obviously impossible, but hypothetically, in that case, all the resources, the time invested in defending ourselves could be completely omitted, and the economy would work much more efficiently, objectively speaking. Not possible, not remotely possible, but that's just an extreme hypothetical case to illustrate the economics of trust. How fast things go when there is sufficient trust. How much cost you save. For example, let's say you wanted to buy a company, but you don't trust that the company is honest. So you have to investigate the details of the company. You have to investigate whether their reports are accurate. You have to investigate whether the culture is what they reported. Maybe everybody is miserable. Maybe everybody hates the job. And you spend months, maybe a year, investigating the company, spending millions of dollars on people to investigate the company and getting the details and so on. Or in discussions. Whereas if there's sufficient trust, then the entire process can be expedited immediately. Okay. Are you ever too busy driving to get gas? Are you ever too busy sawing to sharpen the saw? There's no such thing as not enough time. Everything has the same amount. Everyone has the same amount of time. There's only what you spend that time on. Right. So this was basically the idea that if you have a proposition of something that you could do, a lot of the time we'll say we don't have enough time. Well, that may be true, but a lot of the time that just means it's not because we don't have enough time, but just because we don't care about it enough. It's not important enough. Habits are just a trigger and action. Most people have bad habits rather than addictions. Your brain decides what is real. Not going to expound on this. This is pretty straightforward. I mean, let me skip to the next one because it's related. Have you ever believed something so wholeheartedly that it affected every one of your actions, only to find out later that it was not true? I'll give you an example. In the context of the book, which was it was Mo Gaudat's book. The first book was Solve for Happy. I can't remember what the second book was called. It was called That Little Voice in Your Head. That's where this is from. Okay. His belief was that he was earning more money. He was trying to advance his career for the sake of his family, because his family would have better lives if he made more money. That was a belief that affected all of his actions, and he only later found out that it wasn't true, and that his family would have happily had him make less money and spend more time with them. Mo Gaudat's choices were to pick up more work, trading for more money than needed. His workaholism made him believe that he was doing it for his family, but the excess money would have been happily traded off for that extra time. Okay, next he quoted Inception. What is the most resilient parasite? An idea. And the reason for this is because the most insidious part of such a parasite is that it makes you prioritize its safety, because you must defend it. You must make it survive. You don't know something if you only know it after you see it again. Okay. This sentence is a little bit convoluted. It's not very clear, so I'm going to expound on it a little bit. What it means is when you see it, you see a piece of information, you go, oh yeah, I know that. That's obvious. Later, you get asked about the information of that statement, and you go, oh, what is it? I'm not sure what it is. And you can't answer it until you see it, and you go, oh yeah, that's true. I know that. And I'll give you an example. Maybe some fact about okay, I'll use school as an example because that's a bit more relatable, easy for me. I'll go into class. They'll present, this equation sequence. They'll break it down. I go, oh yeah, that makes sense. I go, yeah, this follows from this. This follows from this. Obviously, like, how could that not be the case? And then I get presented with the same problem. I'm like, what were the steps again? And then I don't study enough because I go, oh yeah, that makes sense, of course. And then I don't study enough, and then I can't remember all the steps when I have to do it, because I knew it in the sense that I know that it's right. I know that must be true. I go, once you're at this step, obviously that's the next step, but I didn't know it as muscle memory. When I see something slightly related to it, I don't go boom, 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 right? So that's knowing something. In TESOL, you present me with a position. I can deduce what is the right information. I can deduce what is the right place. You give me, but maybe not right away. Maybe I need extra time. For example, let's say in TESOL, I get presented with, I'm playing a game. I make a move. I see what happens in the game. I go, oh, I knew I should have played it. I played it differently earlier. Yeah, of course that makes sense. And then, but then I get the same position in a different game, and then I still make the same mistake. So it's like, I don't know something until I don't make the mistake, until I can get it right without seeing the answer. So you don't know something unless you know it. Wait, you don't know something. Wait, what was it? If you only know it after you see it again. So you have to know it without seeing the answer. Okay, so next is, he presented a situation with participants in this example, basically. So you'll talk to people and go, okay, I want you to imagine something. Think of a memory. Think of a situation. Something that makes you unhappy. Your brain has a number of things that can make you unhappy. And then he presented them with an anagram, like of vanilla ice cream or something. A bunch of letters. And then he said, okay, unscramble this. What does this phrase say? And they try to solve it. And they can't really solve it because they're unhappy. But as their thinking brain starts to kick in, they start to solve it. And then when they solve it, he goes, were you able to stay unhappy while you tried to solve that? And they go, oh, well, no. Because while you're unhappy, you can't process it correctly. And while you're processing, you can't remain unhappy. And so the point is that you thought your way into unhappiness and you thought your way out of unhappiness. The existence of unhappiness is a product of thought, and the absence of unhappiness is the absence of thought about it. Unhappiness, or being miserable or suffering, is an equation of pain multiplied by attention. And attention is like how much you focus on it. You have 100% of your attention, and how much of that 100% you spend on it multiplied by the duration. So time times focus equals attention. So pain, suffering, or unhappiness, being miserable, is equal to pain times attention times focus times time. And time can equal 0, focus can equal 0. And when those are equal to 0, it doesn't matter how painful it is, the suffering will be equal to 0. Easier said than done. This is just an equation. This is not something that is, okay, well, I'll just never think about it. It's not so simple. But this is just a fact. Okay. He talks about Moghadhat in this context, how Old Arabic invites the listener to analyze, debate, and contemplate over rushing to the conclusion for a certain configuration of words may mean. Apparently, Old Arabic had a lot of... The words were very contextual. The words mean very different things in different contexts. So you have to really ponder what the speaker is trying to say to understand the words. And now, New Arabic and English too tries to be a lot more precise with its phrasing, a lot less contextual. And so what happens is that people actually understand you less because, here's the thing, they react with their System 1 brain. And System 1 is, well, introduced in Thinking Fast and Slow, another book I'm reading, which I'll mention later. But basically, the System 2 is the thinking brain, the slow brain. System 1 is the fast, efficient, reactive brain. It's pretty straightforward. It's mentioned, everyone gets this intuitively. You don't need to read the book to understand it. You know, if you see a simple problem like that, you know the answer, you think you know the answer to, you see all the examples where people get asked stupid questions on the street and they answer incorrectly. It seems very simple because they're using their System 1 brain. They're not pausing to think. You can see Veritasium's video on this, The Science of Thinking, I believe. It's a 20-minute video, but you don't need to. It's pretty straightforward. Anyone understands this idea. So the thing is, now the New Arabic and other languages, people understand you less because they engage with the words with their System 1 brain. They just react. They interpret it through their perspective. They don't try to slow down, pause, and go, okay, I might be making a mistake, which is what triggers System 2. When System 2 triggers in, when you go, okay, there's a puzzle to solve, there's a problem to solve, there's a situation I need to break down, there is something that I have to really think about, that requires my focus and attention, because System 2 is lazy as fuck, okay? So when there's a mistake to be made, a problem to be solved, that's when System 2 kicks in. But if you go, okay, yeah, no, I get that, you just react. It's like the kid who only listens to half the sentences. The story of the kid who extrapolates what is being said based on past experiences. For example, it was the kid, the mom says, hey, it's 8:40, and she says, yeah, I know, I have to eat before I get ready for school or whatever. And so she eats, and then the dad says, hey, they say something, she goes, yeah, I know. She finishes their sentence with them, and eventually, I just remember the punchline. Or like they get in the car, they say something, she says, yeah, I know, I put on the seatbelt, whatever, etc. Eventually, she goes to the park. She's about to sit on a bench, and an old man says, lady, that bench. And she says, yeah, I know, I can only sit and not lay down. So she sits down, and then it turns out that the man wanted to tell her that the paint is wet. And System 1 is very good at this. It's very good at extrapolating information from incomplete data. It's good at jumping to conclusions. It's good at being very efficient at drawing inferences. It's very good at unscrambling words. If there are typos, you ignore it. You read it correctly and you pass by. If there is a simple math problem, 10 plus 12, you instantly go 22. Yes, easy. If you go, what's a plus b squared? It's a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Just the react. When you drive, it's your System 1. Maybe when you're taking a left turn, System 2 kicks in. And so, anyways, garbage collection in software, but for your brain. Yes, okay, so next he talks about how in software we have this concept called garbage collection, where we have to get rid of things that are no longer in use, where at the end of the code we have to remove. So for example, in C, you allocate memory before you so that variables can store information. And then at the end of it, when your variables are no longer for use, you have to unallocate the memory. You have to take that piece of memory and allocate it. Or else if you don't, eventually you can get this stack of garbage. That's just unused variables that are just floating in memory. And his point is, we have a lot of outdated knowledge that we don't garbage collect. Things that we still believe to be true. Paradigms that apply to our worldview, etc. And we have to collect this garbage. For example, maybe when we are broke, we have to work really hard to make more money because we need more money to improve our life. But maybe at a certain point, when you make enough money, you have to be able to pump the brakes. And there are people who, for example, who are successful people who make a lot of money, and because they have this, for example, maybe when they were 17, they had to make money to pay the rent, they had to make money to buy food, and then maybe in a year they had to make money if they wanted to go to that concert, they had to make money if they wanted to buy that car, and then maybe later they had to make money if they wanted to buy that house, maybe they wanted to make money if they wanted to fly to this country, to do this, to do that, maybe they needed to make money so they could launch this product that they were really excited about, maybe this project that they really wanted to share with the world, maybe they wanted to make money so that they could expand the project, whatever. And then eventually they go, okay, well, now I have this, they have this habit of of chasing money, and then they need to make money so that they can have money for when something comes up in the future. Maybe they need to have money in case the economy collapses, in case of inflation, and in which case there is no tangible thing that they will obtain with this money. They just want it for their bank numbers, because they have this habit of chasing money. It's an abstraction of the thing that you want. For example, I do this, I get money. I get money, I get this thing. And then even when this thing disappears, you have this repetitive habit of doing this action for this money, even without the thing that you originally needed the money for. And if we take this analogy, for example, maybe originally I go, okay, I am really stressed. I have a bunch of homework I'm not doing. I want to run away from this stress. Maybe I don't want to feel this stress. Or maybe I'm really bored. So I'm going to play this video game. Okay, well, I have some friends on this video game. I really want to go and talk to them. I'm going to go play the video game so I can talk to them. Okay. I miss my childhood. I'm going to go play this video game so I can re-experience my childhood. Okay. I have some time on my hands, so I'm going to play this video game. Okay. And then you go, okay, I'm going to play this video game. Am I enjoying myself? Not really. Am I having fun? Not really. Am I talking to any friends? Not really. I'm playing it alone. Am I excited for this? Not really. Why am I playing? Habit. Okay. Knowledge versus observation versus experience. Do you know that the US is a dangerous place to go to school because of the school shootings? Yes. Have you seen it? No. Have you experienced it? No. Do you know that it is dangerous to go skydiving? Yes. Have you seen it? No. Have you experienced it? No. And then you have some situations where maybe you know and you've observed it. Do you know that it's the people who are drunk drivers are liabilities to their own safety and others? Yes. Have you seen it? Yes. Have you experienced it? No. Okay, well, does that mean you should experience it by being drunk? Well, no. But the point is, these are three different forms of knowing things. So if you observe it and you stop observing it, the fact can change without you knowing that the fact has changed. Okay, so let's give an example. Let's say you moved from a very poor country. Okay. Maybe you saw the country, you experienced the country. Okay. Maybe you didn't like the laws. Okay, well, maybe you leave. Maybe 30 years later, the country has changed. It's a modern city. It's rich. It's kind to its citizens. Do you know it? No. You know that it's poor. You know that it's miserable. You know that the human rights are trash. But is your knowledge true? It may no longer be true. So things you knew may no longer be true. So don't hold your beliefs too strongly. And his point is, again, garbage collection. Sometimes we have a lot of data that we just don't collect the garbage for, which is fine because humans don't have that much of that long of a life. We don't experience that many things. The world is huge. We don't need to collect all of the garbage and know everything that is true, so we don't. That's just how biology works. That's the nature of being an alive thing. Like, it doesn't. You live, you move around, you interact with the world, and then you die. That's it. Right? The world is massive. We build heuristics because that's how biology works. We build, and it's extremely efficient. Sometimes it's wrong. That's fine. Understand that, accept that, and you need to be able to accept it to be true. Don't deceive yourself into believing that it's not true. Okay. in Arabic, ignorance, again, he comes from, he grew up speaking Arabic, so that's why it's mentioned. In Arabic, the word ignorance means to know something that is not true. Ignorance is not to know nothing, because if you know that you know nothing, then you can learn quickly. But to even lower than knowing nothing is to know things that are not true, because someone who knows things that are not true is farther from knowing things that are from freeing himself of the lack of knowledge than someone who knows nothing and knows that he knows nothing. Because if you think of the distance, one person knows things and one person doesn't. But if you know things that are false, it's actually in the opposite direction of knowing nothing. So you must first unknow the wrong things before you can learn. And if you think about it, think about the people who preach idiocy, who go on forums and bash their keyboards with full confidence. These people will never be enlightened because they are too busy believing that they know. False knowing is the first of the neural causes of suffering. So he had like a list of reasons for suffering. 4 neural causes. And the first is false knowing, to know things that are false. I'll give you another example for that. And so it's like limiting beliefs are another example of this, which is limiting beliefs you'll see come up said by other people in different contexts, but they basically refer to the same thing, the same reason for barrier of knowledge, where you have to remove the limiting beliefs before you can learn. And I'll tell you a limiting belief, kind of. I mean, it didn't really affect how I perform my actions, but it's something I can think to and point to. I had a belief that there was no point in streaming because unless I was the best at in some way, then there was no point in watching my stream. And let me explain. I had to be, imagine a chart, right? One of these little graphs where you have like strength, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, constitution, stamina, or whatever. Now imagine these in different ways. Maybe it's like for streamers, right? It's like comedy, personality, skill, educational, description, and so on. And so it's like, maybe it's not just 6, right? It's like, but like you have to be unique, you have to be best at something, or else they should just watch a different streamer that has those things, that has that thing that they're looking for, but they have more of it. So why would they watch you? Now, that's not to say I didn't stream because of this belief. That's not to say that if I didn't believe this, I would have went all out to become a big streamer and make money or whatever. None of that. But the point is, let's say I had this similar belief, because this belief isn't just about streaming, right? It's kind of how I view myself. It's like, why would I participate? Why would I study to be the best at poker? Not poker, you can make money. Be the best at, let's say, chess, if I couldn't be a world champion, or if I couldn't be among the top 10 or 20 players that everybody knows. Why would I want to be a musician if I couldn't be one of the best musicians? Why would I want to be why would I want to get better at TESOL if I couldn't be one of the best players and lead tournaments, or one of the best streamers and get lead viewers, or in some way, basically it's like, what would be the point of doing something if I couldn't be a unicorn in that thing? Which is, I mean, I still kind of believe that, to be honest, but also I've dialed it back. I'm okay with not being the best. I'm okay with, so like the thing is, I kind of didn't have motivation to do things because I knew that if I did these things, I wouldn't be the best. So it's like, it felt like it was pointless, because like, think about it. When you think of musicians, it feels like You don't really get anywhere unless you're famous with it. But that's not even true. You can just be an audio engineer or whatever. But the point is, it's a limiting belief. It is to know something that is false. And it's just an example of, in my personal experience, that I can point to for other people to understand. I'm not saying that you face this, but it's an example to illustrate. So, next is you get better at everything you do. No matter what you do, you get better at it. If you practice being lazy, you get better at being lazy. If you practice being strong, you get stronger. If you practice running, you run faster. If you practice biking, you bike longer, you bike faster. If you practice playing the trumpet, you get better at playing the trumpet. If you practice playing the piano, you get better at playing the piano. If you practice being miserable, you get better at being miserable. Everything is a muscle. And in every moment that passes, you are exercising a certain muscle. It might not be a physical muscle, but whatever you're doing, you're exercising a muscle. And maybe it's the muscle of being lazy. Maybe it's the muscle of playing video games. Maybe it's the muscle of procrastinating. Maybe it's the muscle of running away. Because that's like basically neuroplasticity, right? Habits. Okay. Are you practicing being miserable? Okay, next is be your own category. This is going to be the last note I have today. Let me just... So, be your own category. This one is very special. So that is to say, we put ourselves in categories to make it easier to communicate. We draw these discrete lines around what we are. I'll give you an example. Let's say we say, I'm an introvert. I'm male. I'm straight. I'm 23. Social. Not really. I'm awkward. Not necessarily. I have ADHD. Not necessarily. I don't have depression. Maybe. I'm not obviously these aren't all facts about me, but I'm gonna keep going. Maybe I'm athletic. No. I play soccer. Not really. I play video games. I'm a gamer. See, that's a very specific category, and it's a lot more defining than I play video games. You see, if you say I like school. I'm a programmer. And the point is, as we say these things, it draws boundaries around where we fit in certain contextual situations in the listener's imaginations. It draws discrete lines for them to choose how they view us. And the point of being your own category is that you say, I am me. I am William. I sometimes do this. I sometimes do that. But I am me. Why is this special? Why is this different? The key is that when you define categories for yourself, you start to adapt to better fit into those categories. That's what it means to be yourself. To not define yourself with words and then adapt yourself into those words. That's what it means. Okay. It's been 44 minutes. This is the longest one I've ever done.